Hello, my name is Polly Jean Harrison from the Fintech Times, and I'm here today with Richard Arundel, Chief Evangelist at Currencycloud, and Symmie Swil, Head of SME Banking at Starling Bank. Thank you so much both for joining me today.
Thanks, Polly. Good to be here.
Thanks, Polly. Hi.
Hi, perfect. Yes, I'm very looking forward to the conversation we're going to have all sort of around SMEs and fintech. But first off, I was wondering if you guys could just give me each a very brief introduction to yourselves and your company, just to sort of get us kicked off. So Rich, why don't you go first on that one?
Yeah, thanks. So as you said, so I'm we're calling me Rich now, so we're past
formal to start, and then we just go nice into casual.
So I'm Rich Arundel. As you said, I'm Chief Evangelist at Currencycloud. So Currencycloud have been around now for almost kind of over 10 years. So we've been kind of in this fintech world for a while. So we're effectively the number one embedded provider of global cross-border payments and FX. So what that means is we work with other fintechs, kind of banks, FX companies, to kind of abstract away the complexities of kind of FX and cross-border payments and kind of package them up into kind of easy to use kind of technology. And our customers, the likes of Starling, are the ones who then deliver that service to the end customer.
Amazing, thank you so much. And then Symmie, yourself, if you could give an introduction, please.
Sure, I'm Symmie. I'm Head of SME Banking at Starling Bank. Starling Bank was founded in 2014 by Anne Bowden. She had a vision for easier, fairer, more human banking. And we now have 2.6 million customers, of which over 400,000 are business customers, which I'm responsible for ensuring they have a customer experience and that is really positive and helps them run their business in a much better way and make sure that everything else in their life is simpler through an easier banking experience.
Amazing, thank you so much. Well, thanks so much again for being here today. And then sort of just to get down to business, I'd really excited to talk to you guys about sort of SMEs and fintech and sort of the importance of SMEs having really great financial services. So just for some context, the Bank of England recently announced that a third of UK small businesses are highly indebted following the pandemic, with many in the industry advocating for UK Fintech to play its part in working with and empowering UK SMEs. So I think I'm so excited to get you two here, particularly today, with, to discuss how SMEs are a vital part of, the global economy, the supply chain, and, even supporting the well-being of millions of people around the world in various different ways. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to discussing the importance of fintechs backing SMEs to create this positive change. And I think just to kick us off, I'd love to ask you, how has the attitude among the business and banking sector changed towards SMEs? Symmie, did you want to answer that one first?
Sure. So as you said, SMEs are the backbone of at least the UK economy. So 99% of businesses are classed as SMEs, and 3/5 of employment is in SMEs. So they're a really important part of the economy and the wider community. And they've been largely overlooked by the mainstream banks to date. They've been given much higher charges than they can possibly afford, and they've much lower services. So we've seen it as one of our objectives to make sure they have access to low cost, and in our case, no monthly fees, banking that's easy, gives them access to services that might not otherwise be easily available, such as foreign exchange, which is Rich's specialty.
Yeah, Richard, did you have anything to add on that, since you've been brought in by Symmie?
Yeah, teed me up nicely. Listen, I think we had some stats there, and ultimately what we're saying is SMEs, who are kind of this engine room of the economy, had been historically, I guess, underserved when it comes to kind of banking and banking services. But thankfully, there are people like Starling who are now really addressing this. And I think you asked around kind of, I guess, the attitude of people to the banking sector and fintechs to SMEs. I think there's lots more to do, but there's been a welcome shift in kind of SME focused businesses and products and services over the last few years. And obviously, both ourselves and Starling have a big focus on this area. Going back to kind of the BCR grant a few years ago, and we're committed to kind of delivering on that. But not just in the UK, I think globally you're starting to see, as I said, more and more businesses focus on this sector, because it's such a rich sector and so important to kind of global economic growth.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hate to bring up the C word because I'm sure we're all sick of it by now, but has the COVID pandemic sort of affected this shift in any way? Because I mean, I feel like supporting your small businesses, supporting your local business has been like quite a big narrative, at least sort of from the public perspective. So has that seen an effect on how sort of financial services views SMEs as well? Rich, I'll throw it back to you for that one.
Yeah, the C word. I don't think it's just ease, right? I think, and we've seen the digitalization of the consumer happening even pre-pandemic, but I actually think what's happened over the last couple of years is the kind of improvements in technology and the improvements in availability of technology have allowed people then to shift focus onto a different sector. I also think the expectations of the SMEs themselves have changed. You think all areas of technology have improved. And it's been driven by this kind of consumer digitalization, but that's now kind of seeping into the kind of corporate space and the SME space. So I think, yeah, you've seen more and more businesses focus on this, but also more and more businesses being able to focus on this because of the improvements in technology.
Absolutely. And so, yes, Remy, did you want to add something there?
I was going to say, I'll pick up on what Rich said, which is you've now got people expecting in their business lives the quality of service that they have in their business lives. I think that got hugely accelerated under lockdown, where people were working from home, and there was a much larger push from SMEs who may have previously gotten away from not making those investments or not having to make those investments in digitalization and thinking about how do they do things differently and being prepared to potentially try digital providers. So I think Starling in particular, we had dare I say it, a huge boom from businesses saying, well, actually, I can't go to the local branch. I will have to try and do my banking online. And actually, I want to use someone who does that better than my main street bank. So I think people have had to experiment a little bit more. And as they've tried new things, they've said, well, actually, there's ways for me to fundamentally change the way I do my business, and I can bring in more digital innovations. So, and it's not just fintech. I mean, there's obviously a lot of digital tools that are helping businesses right now. And I think it's a really fantastic space that people are saying, well, actually, SMEs are a market worth going after and are a market worth supporting.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, again, that's been one of the real things that we've heard a lot over the last 2 years about how SMEs are a viable market that really do need to be sort of more center stage, I guess. So moving on then, what are the main challenges that SMEs face when navigating financial waters? So what kind of things are coming up as problems for them? Symmie, I'm going to ask you that first.
Oh, I mean, let's start with the bravery it takes to start a small business in the first place. And often what motivates you to do that doesn't necessarily mean that you love doing the financials. So I think the first bit is possibly the knowledge gap. So making sure that you understand what needs to be done from a financial and the associated tax and VAT and admin perspective, which can be quite challenging. I think as a small business owner, you're also owning lots of different roles. You have many hats on. So your expertise may be in marketing or in product, and you're having to think through all the other financial aspects. So it's about having the time and the space and the knowledge. So in particular, for example, with Starling, we take that very seriously. We try to make things as easy as possible for people to understand what's required. We try to take away some of that admin. We use simple language. And then, obviously cash is king for small businesses. So, helping them manage their cash flow, find ways to reduce their costs, and also being able to have access to funding to cover any gaps or make the necessary investments. So I would say those are probably the two main challenges from a financial perspective.
And then Rich, yeah, from your perspective, what kind of challenges are you seeing for SMEs?
I mean, you've left me nothing to talk about there, so that was it really well answered question. But I guess if I answer it from an international payments and an FX point of view, I think some of it is the same, right? Some of it is down to education, because international payments are complex, and if you have no experience in that, then to navigate these complexities just adds on to all the stuff that Symmie was talking about that an SME has to think about. But the other kind of historical challenge, I think, has been not just the education, but it's the access to the right products and services from they're getting it from traditional kind of high street banks. They just haven't had the access to the right tools, be it competitive rates of exchange, be it, and we talk a lot about payments, but it's also the receipt side. So it's the other side of the transaction. So for exporters, how you're getting your money back into the country, and transparency of this stuff as well. I mean, when we first started Currencycloud, we kind of doubled down on the very opaque nature of the FX market. And it's really hard to understand how you can go into business if you don't know how much your products and services are worth, or how much things cost. So I think those three, in terms of cost and transparency, access to the right products and services, and then kind of the education, because of the complexity of the market.
Fantastic. And that kind of leads quite nicely into what my next question was, which is sort of revolves around overseas sales and transactions and kind of like cross-border payments and that sort of area. And what are the main pain points when it comes to those? I know, Richard, you just sort of highlighted a couple then, but are there any other pain points that we need to consider when sort of moving to overseas financial services?
Again, I think repeating what I'm saying, and maybe kind of going into a bit more detail. For an SME, and we've talked about before, more and more SMEs are now thinking about trading globally and thinking about what that means to them. I think that the first thing that we need to address, and that is being addressed, is the cost of the actual payment itself. Be it, there's some stats that it's it used to be a couple of years ago, I think 90 or 95% of the cost was built into just the FX spread. And if you think about kind of the average size of a transaction, that's a huge amount of money for banks to be taking. And for the SMEs to be paying on FX, which actually isn't that expensive. And then you layer on the other costs of the actual payment itself. And also when payments go kind of missing, and we talk about missing, they kind of, they get hidden somewhere, they haven't disappeared. But the cost of then, and I think the cost of a missing payment is something like 20 or 25 times more than the cost of a normal payment for an SME. So you've got the cost, you've then got the speed. And I think, depending on the kind of tools and services you have access to as an SME, the speed of making a payment to to the beneficiary, whether you're buying, you're importing, exporting, you're buying machinery, for example, that's a cash flow issue. You then, as I said, access to the right products I touched on earlier. I think there's one thing having access to products and services to make a payment, but to actually receive money from your international customer. Not have it, and perhaps kind of Symmie can expand on this with their kind of US dollar accounts, which are really interesting. But these kind of global accounts, access to multi-currency accounts, and how you can actually issue an invoice in your customer's home currency, because that then is an expectation. So I think all these things, and then it's going back to the education, is how do I actually do this in the first place? And do I have to walk into my branch and phone them up? Do I need to speak to a different person? How do I get access to to some education on kind of FX rates? If I've got a 30-day invoice, what can I pay that now? What happens, from a currency fluctuation point of view? And that's the education side of things. But I think there's so many to go into detail on. But I'm going to set Symmie up and maybe kind of talk about one of the initiatives we launched. I think it was last year with the US dollar account, which I think is really important from a customer experience point of view.
Yeah. Well, I think as Rich mentioned, I think getting started is the first bit that's quite challenging. It can feel incredibly daunting, incredibly difficult. And I think by making it clear that there are some easy tools out there, it can take away some of the scariness. So for example, at Starling, we have a US dollar account for our business customers, and you can send and receive payments in US currency as though you were based in the US. And I think that can make it a lot easier for people to say, well, actually, the scariness, I mean, it's still hard. You still have to go and generate those sales. You still have to work out the tax. You still have to work out things that were mentioned around invoices, but at least you can clearly receive the funding, how much you're getting. You don't have to worry about the FX. And I think, it's a lot of effort around making sure that, at least we can make things seem a lot simpler and take away a lot of those burdens and frictions from SMEs getting started looking internationally.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from at least from my perspective, a lot of it does come down to just having that support there. Like you're saying, Symmie, it's very scary to do all these things and try and figure out money. And money is just kind of quite scary in general, I think. And when you add the sort of business expectations on top of that. So I think for a fintech to provide an easy way of doing things is super, super vital, 100%. And then so sort of kind of again, on that same kind of tone, why are late payments such an issue? I feel like when you think about SMEs and some of the challenges that they're facing, late payments does kind of get brought up into the conversation quite a lot. So I'd be very interested to hear your guys' opinions on that. I mean, Symmie, do you want to go into that one first?
Sure. I think, as I mentioned before, cash is king. So, one of the biggest challenges for SMEs is getting money through the door. And, When we talk about late payments, there's really two issues there. One is people not paying you on time. So you issue an invoice for 30 days and not paying on 30 days. So tools that can help you there are, we have a business toolkit, which makes it really easy for you to send invoices out immediately. So you don't have a delay on your side sending it out, but also makes it very clear when that invoice has been paid and makes it easy for you to understand when it hasn't been paid and make it easy to chase. So that's probably the first part. The second thing, which is harder to deal with really, is extended payment terms. So that's not necessarily late payments per se, but that's when, say, larger businesses have in their contract 90 days, 120 days. And there's actually not a lot SMEs can really do if they sign up to that. There is a big push at the Small Business Commissioner at the moment is encouraging larger businesses to sign up to the prompt payment code, which is for larger businesses to commit to paying SMEs after 30 days. And I think it's really about the same kind of pressure we have with ESG, which is, we're starting to expect larger businesses to treat their smaller SME suppliers more fairly. I think really that's the opportunity, but that's a slightly different problem from late payment per se, where it's really you've got contractual right to that funding. It's really about making sure that we expect fair terms for SMEs.
Yeah, and Rich, was there anything you wanted to add on that one?
Yeah, so I kind of view it as a chain of events here. So late payments, whichever side of whether you're importing or exporting, paying or being owed money. It's delays in inventory. It's delays in then delivering products or services to your customer. You've then got kind of trust issues with your customer. You've got trust issues with your suppliers if you're paying that side. As Symmie was saying, there's unfavorable payment terms, and the impact of all this stuff is, as I said, not just the trust, but customer churn, and then working capital issues. So, what seems a very simple kind of phrase in terms of late payment just has this kind of knock-on butterfly effect, which can really affect kind of a lot of SMEs, which I think historically is going to turn people away from looking internationally. But thankfully, there are businesses such as Starling who are providing some awesome solutions to this, and we're happy to support them in this.
Perfect. And again, that reads really nicely into my next question. So we're getting some perfect segues today. But what can the fintech industry do to help with these kind of problems, late payments, as well as some of the other issues that we've spoken about? What are the fintech industry doing? Or maybe a better question is what the fintech industry should be doing, perhaps, to help out these small businesses. So Rich, again, I'm going to throw it back to you.
So listen, and there's been big improvements, right, over the last few years. And I'm not just saying this because Starling are on the call, but having businesses focused on the SME sector and taking some of their products and services to that market is fantastic. So we talked about kind of these multi-currency accounts, these global accounts. Having an account denominated in US dollars that your customers can pay into locally is pretty game changing for a lot of SMEs, because it kind of makes your product feel and look kind of local to your customers. So I think things like that. We launched a product called Spark a couple of years ago, which enables people to do this. It's a multi-currency account, so you can trade globally. I also think there are recent products which look at kind of speed and reconciliation of payments, so things like Swift GPI, which is a really good kind of track and trace capability. And again, that helps SMEs, as I said, track and trace their payments, trying to avoid these kind of late or errant payments. It's picking the right method of payment. There are other options apart from Swift. You can send money via local rails, which kind of reduces the cost as well. And again, going back on the reconciliation side of things, is making sure you're using providers who have kind of smart reconciliation tools for your payments that you send. So when it lands with your beneficiary, then the reference is pulled through. They know who it's from, so that reconciliation kind of comes through. Big one for us is just make sure that the fees and the costs are transparent, right? So you know what you're paying. FX isn't free. There's going to be a charge in it. But I think for a lot of people, it's understanding that charge is absolutely fine. I'm happy to pay for the value here. But if you're going to charge me 20 basis points, then tell me so I can work out what I'm doing. Going on that, we've been kind of delivering kind of real-time access to FX rates for years now, but I think that kind of real-time access to FX is really important, especially if you have 30 or 90-day payment terms. There's plenty more. I think if you think about why fintech exists, right? Fintech kind of is here to use technology to deliver continual improvements to the customer in terms of the products and services that we offer. So we're working with other banking providers to ensure that we're delivering the best that's out there and putting it in the hands of customers like Starling, who then ultimately take it to their market. I think more tools and products making money move easier. We have kind of SEPA payments in Europe. We have faster payments in the UK. I think the ASEAN economic area are looking at kind of improvements in their kind of local payment schemes as well. But we're getting there. There's a lot more to do, and I think it comes back down to kind of accessibility, because there's huge improvements. And as a consumer, you probably know, and if you're a consumer who's either traveled abroad or has a kind of a banking app, you've seen these improvements as a consumer. It's just that the SME sector has been slightly further behind, so it's increasing the availability and getting these products and services and tools in the hands of the SMEs and educate them so they have access to this, so they can trade globally with relative ease.
Fantastic, and I love everything you just said, Rich. Absolutely. And then Symmie, yeah, what did you think on this one?
I also love everything you said, Rich. I think we're focused on putting the services back into financial services. So fundamentally, we should be enabling small businesses to do what they do best, which is manage and grow their business and serve their customers. And we're trying to do that by reducing the cost. We're trying to do that by reducing the frictions and complications. Currencycloud is a perfect example. They've helped us reduce the cost of FX for so many customers, which is a material cost to your margin, as well as making it, I guess, scarier to take on challenges like international customers or suppliers. So you're taking away all of those like scary, difficult bits that fundamentally make it a lot easier for you to manage and run your business. You asked what I'd like to see. I obviously think that we're doing a lot of that already at Starling, but I think we want to see financial services fintech really at the heart of how small businesses are running their companies. So how do we make sure that we are making it very easy for them to integrate everything else that they're doing, their apps? So the Starling Marketplace, for example, has our accounting providers on there. We've got point of sale on there. To give a really good example, we've got a connection with Xero. Xero now lets you connect your US dollar account through currencies. You can keep track through Currencycloud. You can keep track of all of your spending, both GBP, USD. You know where you're at. You feel in control of your finances. You can make better decisions as a small business. And we've got a number of other providers on there, from insurance to HR. And I can see that can only really get better as people see the opportunity to really have everything on their phone or on their laptop, and take away a lot of the challenges of running a small business.
Amazing, thank you so much. I'd love to sort of shine the spotlight now, particularly on Starling and Currencycloud. You guys have already shared quite a few of the different services and products that you guys offer, but were there any other sort of wins, like services, products, anything at all that you guys want to highlight that your companies are doing, either individually or together, just to help SMEs? I'd love to hear about them now. Symmie, throwing it back to you with Starling. Is there any other things that you'd like to bring up?
I have lots of things. I think we have a very interesting relationship in that Starling and Currencycloud, we're both each other's customers and both each other's suppliers. So what we don't talk about a lot is that Starling, not only do we have the 2.6 million retail and small business customers, but we have 25 other fintechs that we support with payments, and Currencycloud is one of those. And I think that's a space that we're, really think that we can grow. So hopefully there are other fintechs out there that want some faster payment services. We can support them with that. And then obviously we see more opportunities to help more small business customers do more with their FX, which is, where we rely on Currencycloud to offer a better service. So, but again, like we're also building out our software as a service offering. So, we're allowing other banks internationally to use our software in order to offer more small business customers and personal customers a better banking offering. And we are also offering BAS, so our regulated banking license for providers in Europe. So there's a lot of interesting things we're trying to do for small businesses and other sort of financial services providers.
Amazing, all sounds great. And then Rich, the Currencycloud perspective.
Yeah, listen, I think the big thing in recent history for Currencycloud is the fact that we were acquired by Visa at the end of last year. That transaction went through, and we've been working with Visa for a few years actually. But I think our message at the moment is, everything changes, but nothing changes. And what I mean by that is, of course, things are going to change, but actually, if you look at our kind of mission, which is to reimagine the way that money flows, to create a better tomorrow for all, and then you look at kind of what Visa are trying to do, which is kind of connecting the world, it's so interlinked that, you know, we just feel having, you know, this big company behind us is just going to supercharge all our ambitions. And part of that is obviously delivering on the promises that we made as part of the grants we've received, but also, you know, as part of this mission, delivering on that, it just really supercharges everything. So I think, you know, big plans from Currencycloud side of things. You know, as we grow, we're a technology business at heart, so huge amounts of investment going into our platform, the platform itself. But we continue to kind of grow on our global footprint. You know, with recent transaction, it kind of gives us access to kind of new tools, new toys to play with. But it's I think, you know, fundamentally, it's keeping the customer at the heart of everything we do and learning from the customer. You know, we treat all our kind of our relationships as partnerships. We have a really good relationship with Starling. As Symmie was saying, it goes both ways. You know, this industry is quite incestuous, but I think if you always remember that we exist to deliver a service to the end customer, and we learn from the end customer. So lots to do, expanding kind of networks, expanding routes, continuing to take, you know, everything that is available to us and deliver it, I guess, as seamlessly as possible, to get into the hands of the end user. And that's what we've always been about, and we'll continue to do that. And I think it's exciting times. You know, we mentioned the pandemic, we mentioned the digitalization that's happened over the last few years. And if you think, you know, I said earlier, we first started this business, actually. We became Currencycloud in 2012, and we were under another name for about 3 years before that. But if you think about what banking used to be like, you know, even 10 years ago, I think when we first, in 2009, that's when the first iPad came out. You know, and I feel old saying this, and if you think about how you used to carry out a transaction, you probably had 3 or 4 dongles on your desk that remember which one, you know, connected you to a bank that did your international payments and which one did your domestic payments. And the access, you know, sometimes you had to walk down the road to your banking branch. But you know, the likes of Starling have completely changed that kind of that access, and you'll continue to see that. And as I said, there are other products and services out there for different kind of segments of the market. The access to international payments has changed. You know, where people carry out that transaction is changing with the advent of embedded finance. So it's just an exciting time to kind of be in this industry.
For sure, it definitely sounds like it. Absolutely. And then sort of very finally then, I'd love to sort of cast our eyes to the future somewhat. I know we've kind of already talked about it already, but what do you guys think the future of this? Are SMEs in good hands with fintech? Symmie, why don't you answer that one?
I have a very biased perspective, but yes, I think we're only going to continue to expand our services and get better at serving a wider variety and larger small businesses. And as Rich says, we continually learn from our customer base, so we know how to iterate, we know how to respond to their feedback. We're going to get much better with our services and really be able to help them confidently move away from their traditional banking providers and hopefully help them on their growth trajectory. So we really want to help them fulfill their potential. So we're quite excited by that.
Amazing. It definitely sounds very exciting. And then Rich, what did you think?
Listen, I think now, especially now, SMEs are in the hands of people who generally care about their success. I think that's the best place to be, right? So, you know, we've seen the likes of Starling change this industry for the better. And you know, ask Symmie and ask Anne and ask the whole team at Starling. They're not finished yet. You know, we've got ambitious people, and going back to why fintech exists, and we'll continually evolve and continue to get better. You know, when I talk about our mission about reimagining, we're still reimagining the way the money flows, and we'll continue to do that. And it's going back to, are they in good hands? I certainly hope so. From what we see, you know, we work with a number of people trying to tackle this market all over the globe. We've made some very impressive strides over the last kind of few years. And if you cast your mind forward the next couple of years, I'd love to do another one of these kind of interviews and see this. How far have we come? Was it all kind of just naive optimism? But I really don't think it is.
No, absolutely. I think it's definitely one to revisit in a bit of time just to see how the market goes. But thank you so much both for sharing your insights. I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Was there any final thoughts of anything you wanted to add? Rich, you gave quite a good closing remark there, but anything else that you want to bring up that we've talked about today that you think you'd really like to just squeeze in at the very last second? Richard, do you have anything?
Listen, we've covered a lot, right? I think, you know, for SMEs out there, it's not just the products and services that someone offers. It's the, you know, it's use someone you trust and use someone who is able to impart that knowledge and take time and care to look after you. And I think Starling are one of those people. And then from our point of view, you know, we position ourselves as a kind of sage archetype. You know, so we've been around, we understand this market. So for other businesses out there who are you know, looking at how they service their international customers, then we'd love to speak to you, and we're happy to.
Perfect, sounds good. And then Symmie, anything else from you?
It's very hard to add to that, isn't it? Look, I think the SME market is only going to grow. I think the opportunities for them and the way we're going to serve them is only going to improve. And I think, you know, we're all very excited by what we can do together. I think what makes Starling, and I would say Currencycloud as well, very special is that we've very recently startups ourselves. So, you know, we're trying to take the experience we've had in being a small business and make sure that we're supporting other small businesses as they're going on similar but different journeys. So we're very, very passionate about making sure that this is a space that encourages more entrepreneurs and makes it easier for them to sort of do what they are passionate about and build a beautiful business.
Amazing. That all sounds fantastic. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this all goes. And Rich, like you say, maybe in a couple of years' time, we'll get back together and have a little bit of evaluation about the whole thing. But thank you so much, both of you, Symmie, Rich. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been brilliant to try and get your insights on this. So thank you so much.
Thank you.